Testing 1, 2. Good evening, Park Hill. Good evening, good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to give greetings to all of you, the beneficiaries of a 115-year legacy, since we are on the heels of celebrating 115 years. We just did that this last Sunday. We are the beneficiaries of that legacy, and we are also the bearers of that legacy. Hence, and that is why we are here tonight, because we are carrying the mantle of preserving our holy headquarters for at least another 150 years, at least, so that this place of mission, this place of justice will continue to be in our world, being a light to people, letting the world know that there is at least one faith quarters where all people are welcome. Amen? Amen? That there is one community of people that believe all people should thrive in life, love, and liberation. We're here tonight to review the recommendations from our building and design team. That's all I'm going to say about that for now, because you're going to hear a whole lot more about that later from Reverend Jessica and from Cindy Sauls. I do want to acknowledge, though, that we have 4 gentlemen who are not members of Park Hill United Methodist Church and are giving their time here tonight to make these recommendations. They have worked full days, as we have, but we're members. We are members of Park Hill, and they are not, and they are sacrificing their time. So would you please join me in giving them a round of applause for that gift? I am so excited. Can you tell? Yeah. I am so excited that this night is here because we are continuing to make history, her story, since we are a 2-women-led church. We are continuing to carry the legacy forward. In August, we prioritized the work that is to be done in this first phase of a capital campaign, but now we're here to review how to begin that work, how to review the designs, and then we will vote to hopefully approve those designs. Amen? Amen. Okay. I want to read part A of one scripture. I'm a pastor. I have to include a scripture. Cindy, somehow I just called you. Ignore that. Check this out. Ezra, chapter 7, verse 27, the A part of verse 27. Praise be to the Lord, the God of our ancestors, who has put it into the king's heart. Language for our day could be, who has put it on our faith leaders' heart to bring honor, glory, and beauty to the house of the Lord in Jerusalem in this way. That's the call that we're answering, to bring glory, honor, and beauty to our holy headquarters. Let us pray. Eternal and all-wise and gracious God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather collaboratively to join you in the work of bringing heaven on earth, bringing heaven to earth as it is in heaven. Thank you for bringing us together, oh God, to discern, to pray, to listen, to hear each other's perspectives, to give space for each other's voices, thoughts, opinions, suggestions, all in the effort to find and seek your divine will for the Park Hill United Methodist Church. We believe with all of our hearts that you have already prepared the path for us. You have given us the vision. You are providing the provision through us, through amazing men like the design team who are with us today, people inside and beyond the faith community of Park Hill who are saying yes to this call. Holy Spirit of God, we welcome you in this sacred place, and we welcome your guidance tonight. In Christ's name we pray. Let us all say together, amen. Now it is my pleasure to welcome to the forefront our district superintendent of the Colorado Front Range of the Mountain Sky Conference of the United Methodist Church. That is such a mouthful. Reverend Jessica Rooks will facilitate this meeting for us tonight.
Thank you, Pastor Jackson. Appreciate being with you all tonight. Excited when there is things happening in our local churches, and there are things happening here. So thanks for coming out tonight and taking part in this important vote. I'm Jessica Rooks, the superintendent, so I'll preside over the meeting, so I officially call it to order. I do want to explain a little bit. I know in August you had a charge conference for part of this process. Tonight we're having a church conference, and those are actually two different things. So tonight's church conference means anyone who is a member of the congregation or a retired clergy connected to the congregation can vote. A charge conference means only the elected leadership and the retired clergy can vote. A church conference means all members, professing members, and clergy connected can vote. So this is a church conference, so everybody gets to vote. Pastor Val asked me to kind of explain the difference between that and why this is a church. A church conference really does bring in more of the voices and the participation of the entire congregation, which is really important in this kind of project, that all of the congregation be a part of making that decision together to affirm the hard work that is done by a few, but really owned by the many. So tonight is a church conference inviting everyone to really be a part of it. Again, the purpose is we're going to hear designs and approve those for going forward, and then there will be other steps along the way that you all get more say and votes and part of the process. This is a big project, so it's a lot of steps, and the congregation being a part of it is really important. We do take a vote, though, before we do anything else, and that's to elect the recording secretary so that someone is taking notes of this meeting. And the best thing about a conference is when someone has already been either volunteered or voluntold to do that. And so Tristan Silva is going to be the recording secretary, unless somebody really wants to jump up and claim it themselves. I've never seen that happen. But if you would approve Tristan as the recording secretary for tonight, please say yes. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you, Tristan, for taking on that important role. Very much appreciate it. You're going to hear next from Cindy and then from the design team. And then after all of the presentations, I'll kind of come back up and we'll have time for question and answer, and then we'll do the vote at the end. There'll be lots of times for questions, so please make note of anything. We'll make sure that we answer all the questions before we're ready to vote tonight. So I invite Cindy to come forward.
Testing, testing, can you hear me? Great. All right, thanks everybody again for being here. My name is Cindy Sauls. I think you guys, most everybody knows me, and I'm excited to be here tonight. This is like a dream for me. And I wanted to introduce the building team first. We have a few people here from the building team. Where's Scott Simons? He was here. Scott Simons, good. We have Mark Marshall, and we have Reverend Paul Cockey from our building team. So yes, good, good, good. Okay. And then we have our design team. And these folks, I have to tell you, I've been working with them for probably about 20 years. So I met Brian when he was a young project architect when I was with Aurora Public Schools in construction management, and now he is partner and part owner of his firm.
Right.
Yep. And Tim also was a junior mechanical engineer. Now he's a partner and partial owner of his firm. Don's son is now part of his firm, and he was just saying he's looking for a way to be less needed, obsolete. So I have so much respect for this team. Their expertise, their professionalism is second to none. So we've got the best here, you guys. Who did I miss? Patrick. Patrick Ward. Patrick Ward. He is also a project architect that's been working with Brian and RTA for 10 years, maybe? Yeah, and I've worked with him in the past, too. So thank you. I'm sorry, Patrick. All right, so let's see. Yay, Patrick. The last time I talked to the group, it was during the Charge Conference. And so with the approval, as Jessica said, in the Charge Conference, to move forward with the schematic design, this is what this is about now. With that approval, we have come to a schematic design that the architects will present to you. And in the Charge Conference, we talked about how the building team decided that we have to maintain the building open. To do that, we have to make sure and maintain heat in the building. And we also have to make sure that our building envelope is secure, that it's not raining in the building. So those are our priorities, and that's how we got to this design. One thing that I also wanted to say is if we're lucky enough to get approval and move forward in design, we will be finishing a design process, and we will be presenting it to a Charge Conference in early January. At that time, we'll have another vote prior to going out to bid. When we get a general contractor on board, that's when we're going to know more details about the project. So what I'm here to do is make sure that expectations are clear that this is not going to be an easy task. We're going to need some flexibility from the congregation, and we might have to cancel service one Sunday if we have an electrical changeover. We might have to move people in and out of rooms. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that we really need everyone to be in a partnership here to work together to get this construction done. Okay? And so with that, I think I'll turn it over to Brian and let you introduce the slides. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Cindy. Again, my name is Brian Calhoun. Our firm is RTA Architects, and we have been working with Cindy for over 20 years, primarily in the K-12 industry, but we do a lot of church work also at our firm. So we began a process in 2020 where Cindy asked us to come out and do some assessment work in the church to help identify some of the key challenges that you're facing. The buildings, as you know here, are over 100 years old. The Children's Center wing, 1924. The building we're in right now, built in 1955. And that's a long time. And building systems don't last that long. You get really good bones. You've got a great facility here. But all the components within it, the electrical, the mechanical, roofing, stucco, walls, all these things have a lifespan. And you're starting to come up against the lifespan in many of those systems in the building. So we went through the building, and we found a number of deficiencies. From an architectural standpoint, I'm going to let Tim go through the mechanical because that's a big part of our focus. But there's a number of things that we're seeing that are beginning to reach the end of their useful life in the building. Roofing, we've seen ongoing leaks and water infiltration problems. The stucco in the building has really gotten to the point where it's really at its lifespan. We need to be thinking about repairing, but also thinking about replacing the stucco and setting you up to be watertight, into the future. Windows, are an element as well. And so when we're really thinking about prioritizing, we're thinking about the envelope of the building, because that's what keeps the elements out, right? The water, temperature that can cause damage, and the rest of the building were our priorities. And we're going to seek to address some of those more urgent elements through this project, including stucco repair on the north side of the building and a little bit of fence realignment work to make sure that we've got safe egress from the building. Tim, you get your mic all going there now?
I do.
A big part of what we looked at was the mechanical systems. I'll let Tim walk through that.
Yeah, so what we've got up on the screen is kind of a quick summary of our assessment findings that we started several years ago. When we did our first assessment, this was before the steam pipe leak that happened outside the Babs Chapel and everything, and so we saw some of those concerns. Obviously, you guys saw what happened with aging systems and the damage and the need for replacement of those systems. So starting with the 1920s building, as Brian mentioned, which is the Children's Center side, first and second floor, also includes the pastoral offices, the Babs Chapel. The steam piping that's over there on that side of the building is failing, as you're all aware. A lot of that piping is in the crawl space and it's not accessible, so repairs are difficult. When that piping failed, there was a lot of floor work to get to where you could get to the piping, take it back to a point where they could run new piping, and so there's a lot that's buried and not easy to get to. The heating system over there is all steam radiators. You know, in those classrooms, there's all the cages around the radiators to protect all the little ones so they don't get burned or anything, because those steam radiators do get hot. They're all manually controlled, and by that I mean there's no thermostat that then tells you when you want heat. They're on unless you go turn the valve. Some of them are missing the valves. There's all kinds of issues with control in those classrooms. There's no permanent air conditioning. There's some window units that are used temporarily, but there's nothing permanently in place. And obviously window units, you get infiltration through the window around the cracks. They're noisy, and usually take them out for winter so that you can keep the windows buttoned up nice and tight. So we want to look at a permanent solution for air conditioning in that side. There's also essentially no ventilation over there. It's all operable windows, and by that I mean you have to open a window just like your house to get fresh air into the classrooms. What we're looking to do with our mechanical system is to try to address all of those deficiencies on that side of the building. Moving to the 1950s building and the sanctuary that we're sitting in right now, completely separate heating system. So we've got the steam system, which is over on the 1920s side, and then on this 1950s side, which includes mostly the sanctuary, some of the back of house areas, the fellowship hall underneath, is all a hot water boiler system, and so it's a little bit separate heating system. There's radiant floor that's in this sanctuary floor, that's in the basement floor. It's leaking, it's been abandoned in place, it doesn't function. The air handling units are original from the 50s. They're past their useful life. Again, systems that need to be replaced so that we have a functional space. As I'm sure you're aware, heating and cooling are manually controlled, as in there's a switch in a back room by the stairs that turns on. You have to manually flip it on, and then we pick heating or cooling for whatever happens, the need happens to be for that day. Again, we're trying to address all of those things with the new mechanical system for this side as well as the Children's Center. And then electrical, I'll let Dawn talk a little bit about electrical.
You don't have bullets, Don.
I don't?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to be shooting from the hip. I was told at another meeting that I'm very passionate about electrical, so if I get carried away and, just flow with me. The electrical systems in the building are similar to the mechanical. They've been in here forever. And if you can imagine back in the 1920s what the electrical that was installed is like, in today's standards, it's, I would say, scary. The 1950s, we've got some newer gear, but it's, again, very old. The issues you run into with the old gear is that, and we're talking panel boards, breaker panel boards and stuff like that, but in the basement, there's some that have big breakers. They're not just the little thumb flip type deals. These things, you can't find parts for them, so if a part fails, you can't find parts for them unless it's a used part that's been refurbished from somebody else in some other old building that's been torn down. The other thing you run into is they're not built the same and they're not as safe as today's equipment. If you have a ground fault, today the equipment is going to trip. Boom. It's going to open up and keep from feeding electrical current to those faults. That old gear, we have no real confidence that it will clear the fault the way it should, and that fault may just sit there and continue to spark and arc and start a fire or any of those kind of things. I heard somebody up here on stage just a few minutes ago before the meeting that they were looking at something or working on something with, I'm assuming, the dimming system for the lights in here, and said that they wanted to fix something, but they were afraid they didn't want to get electrocuted. Those are the issues you run into with the electrical. So part of the program is to accommodate all the new mechanical. Tim mentioned that there's no HVAC in the building. When you add HVAC to the building, your electrical load goes from here to here. The gear in the building is not built and is not adequate to handle air conditioning, so it has to be upgraded. Couple other systems that you run into, your fire alarm system. It's old as well. Not really sure how well it's been maintained. It seems like there are no faults in it, so that's a good sign. But by today's standards, that's an old zoned system, meaning that it looks at detectors in a zone kind of atmosphere. It says, okay, we've got a bunch of detectors in one part of the building. If you get an alarm, it tells you, hey, we've got something going on in that building. Today's fire alarm systems are point addressable, meaning you'll know exactly which device is in alarm. It'll tell you, the smoke detector in room such and such, northeast corner. So the fire alarm system should probably be upgraded, and we've talked about that, and we've got some things in the program and the project to address some of that. But because of budget, some things are limited, and we're trying to prioritize things and spread the money where it's most needed. Lighting in the building is all incandescent or fluorescent, which is consuming a lot of energy. It would be very nice to replace all of that lighting with LED. So you've got some of those issues as well. And behind the scenes of the panels, the lighting, the fire alarm, you've got all this wiring that's been in the building for 75 years or more. And oftentimes that wiring gets brittle, it's old. You go to change something and all the insulation just cracks off of it, and now the wire's useless. So you've got some issues there that'll have to be dealt with in time. But again, we're looking at the electrical from the standpoint of trying to prioritize things, get the most important things done up front to allow you to keep moving forward with your capital improvements throughout the future. We don't want to stick you with anything at this point that is not going to allow you to make some changes later. So do I go back to you now, Brian?
Yes, I'm just trying to advance. Can you advance the slide for me? I'm not sure if it's my remote or if it's stuck. Oh, there we go. So speaking of priorities, Don touched on the fact that we need to prioritize. So we began early this summer. We were selected by the church to begin the design process. We began the process looking at all these deficiencies that we had summarized for the building, and we wanted to prioritize it because we know that there's more needs than there is funding. And so we have to tackle the things that are the most important first. The sanctuary HVAC is top of the list. You've got to have a functioning heating and cooling system for this space if you're going to function as a successful congregation. The Children's Center HVAC was the next highest priority. Priority 3 are stucco repairs, because we really want to make sure that if you have an area that is leaking and causing more damage to the building, that gets addressed. And then we're talking about supporting infrastructure, which is really getting to Don's point. Anything that we do with the mechanical system needs to have an electrical service to support it. And so we have to make those upgrades as necessary so that we can do the mechanical retrofit project. So with that electric service, we know we need to add new mechanical equipment to the building. So we've got some structural work to do on the roof to support a new mechanical unit. And then the fire alarm system upgrades are all in the top of the list. And then as budget allows, there's a little bit of site work, including realigning the fence at the front of the building where the playground is, so that you can egress through those main, they're not, I don't know that I call them front doors, but they're prominent doors that exit the building. You should be able to get out to the public way without going through the playground. So we're looking at a minor fence realignment to accommodate that. Any questions? As we go through this, we can take questions. There's not a big group, so yes. Roofing was not identified when we started this process as one of the elements of the scope. As we talked as we entered the meeting today, there is some leaks going on that we need to address. So we'll have to talk about that with the building team. My slides going here. I may need, oh, there we go. So the summary of mechanical scope, Tim?
So I'll go a little bit deeper into what I was talking about with some of the things that we're looking at for the mechanical system. On the right side of this, we've got kind of a color-coded map. So I'll start with the Children's Center as I did before. We asked Cindy and the building team to put together a list of priority rooms so that we could have kind of a hierarchy of which ones need to be addressed first and kind of move through that list. So priority 1 is the classroom in blue. Priority 2, the classroom in red, both on the north side of that corridor. And then priorities 3 and 4, a little bit less critical, but still important for the Children's Center, in yellow and green on the south side of that corridor. Looking at the sanctuary, obviously that's a very high priority, so that also follows in blue. What we've been doing, we've been watching the Denver codes. And so Denver, as you guys all know, I'm sure, is on a huge electrification push for the last couple of years. There's been a little bit, I think, of pushback in how aggressive they were to start with. And so with that, there's been kind of a little bit of a step back in what they're allowing. And I'll kind of explain what I mean by that. So with that in mind, we're looking at providing a heating source of gas-fired equipment, taking it off of the steam system, not relying on the old steam piping, and bringing a separate system in for the Children's Center so that you can isolate it from that steam system, still heat those spaces. Provide air conditioning, I mentioned that earlier, get rid of those window units, provide a permanent air conditioning system, and then also provide ventilation through the mechanical system. So it's automatic, we're reading CO2 levels in the space, we can provide the right amount of ventilation as the room is being used. We have an add alternate system, and an add alternate just means something that we're going to price as a separate option for a heat pump design. And heat pump is an electrified heating source. You basically run an air conditioner essentially backwards. That's really what Denver has been pushing for this electrification process. The challenge there is kind of matching not only utility rates, typically electricity is a higher cost than gas, but also, I lost my train of thought there. We're looking at the gas system since we're allowed to do that by Denver, and so we can do a partial electrification system. And what that does is allow us to use a heat pump where we've got favorable outdoor conditions, keeping it in those utility rates that are, not the utility rates, but the usage that's less to keep the utility costs down low. And then when we get to those really cold days, we've got the gas-fired backup. You run it like you normally do. I'm sure a lot of you have furnaces in your house. And that keeps those utility costs lower on those really, really cold days. This, since the Denver has changed their kind of code requirements moving forward, this is an effort to, again, provide partial electrification that helps align with Energize Denver. If you guys are familiar with that, that's kind of the label for their electrification program. There are some other energy targets associated with that, and so we've been working with Cindy and the building team to try to make sure that our mechanical system provides a good pathway forwards to meet those energy requirements over the coming years. Heating, cooling, ventilation for all the systems improves space comfort, improves indoor air quality, especially critical for the Children's Center with all the young children over there. Gets rid of reliance on the existing mechanical systems. Everything is going to be independent from the steam, like I mentioned on the Children's Center. For the sanctuary, we're going to put a new unit on the roof that replaces what's serving the sanctuary from the basement down below. I'll get a little bit into layout where we've got some drawings. On a control side, we're looking at programmable thermostats, something that's simple to use, easy to use. There'll be like an override button. You hit it, you want to be in a space for 4 hours. The system comes up automatically. When you're not using it, it goes to a setback mode and to try to reduce energy use as much as possible.
So I think it's important to note in the diagram on the right, the colored areas show the portions of the building that we would be addressing first, but this is part of a process. Like, we are not able to provide new mechanical in all the spaces in the building that are on the current steam and boiler system. We're just addressing the highest priority spaces. There would need to be an ongoing effort to replace mechanical systems so that we can get off the steam and not have that risk of leaks and damage to the building. And it's failing, right? That system is slowly failing, as you see year after year with service calls. Anything else on this one? Yep, next slide.
So I can run through, these are a few of our mechanical plans. I know they're a little hard to read, but I can kind of run through.
The red button is the laser.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I can run through a little bit. Again, building footprints. If I hit the right button here. I think your battery died, Brian. All right.
Is it not going?
No,
Point
it's okay.
it at the floor.
Oh, there we go. Did I just miss it? Okay. If you can see, Children's Center over on the left. So we're looking at an overhead ductwork system. So ductwork served overhead to provide air to all of those spaces. The new mechanical equipment, very similar to your house, a furnace with a condensing unit outside. We're looking at putting that up on the second floor. We'll get to that here in a second. New ductwork that kind of runs throughout those spaces to serve those classrooms. Over in the sanctuary, we're trying our best to not do anything within the sanctuary itself as far as our work is concerned. So the existing ductwork, you can see kind of these half-moon grills on the side. There's ductwork behind there below the windows. Our intent there is to connect to all of that existing ductwork outside of the space to minimize any impacts to the sanctuary itself. Going to second floor. Oh, I'm too fast. We'll get there.
Can we go back one
Okay,
slide?
I got it.
There we go. That one.
All right, so again, I don't know that you can see much, but there's 2 storage rooms in the second floor that we are looking at kind of on either end of that bank of offices on the north side of the hallway. We're going to put a couple of furnaces in the one kind of on the west side and a few next to the stair storage room on the east side. Ductwork down below, serve those classrooms. One good thing about this kind of a system is we talked about that priority list. This really lets us do a room-by-room solution. So it's easy for us if we need to pull a room out as an alternate or if we need to pull it out for budget, hitting those lower priority rooms and taking those out. This gives us a really good opportunity to do that, and we're not doing a whole system all at once. Again, looking at a phased approach moving forward. The sanctuary, very similar on the balcony level back there. We're not doing anything within the space. Ductwork, we're running down from the roof in some spaces outside of the sanctuary. And then going to a little bit on the roof, behind and above the balcony, there's that big grill in the back of the church. And up there, there's another level, and then beyond that is a flat roof area. And so we're proposing a new mechanical unit back in that area. I mentioned ductwork down below connecting to these grills on the side. That would cover the entire sanctuary. That would provide you all of the heating, all of the cooling, and all of the ventilation, replacing all of the aging air handlers down in the basement, getting rid of the reliance on the chiller and the boiler system that are also failing. We've got, as Brian mentioned, support needed for those mechanical systems. So there's a big piece of equipment that's going to go on that roof, trying to minimize what we're doing on the second floor ceiling. We're looking at coordinating with our structural engineer and having a frame that goes above the roof to support that piece of equipment to try to limit how much work is needed inside. Obviously, Don mentioned power to it. There's a lot of new power needs for what we're doing. And then running the new ductwork through relies on architectural. We need to enclose it, make it look nice in those office areas in the back. And then what's not shown on this plan, the condensing units for the children's center, so the outside units that go similar to what you might have at your house, air conditioner, there's a little section of flat roof above those second floor offices, and so those would go up on that space. We've got, I think I touched on this, but a heat pump alternate, and so those units would essentially be the same. They go outside, we provide electric heat when we can, and then gas backup when we need it. And then moving on.
So the photo in the top right corner is your existing facility with no work. Like, we just wanted to show the street view, the visibility of that flat roof area where we're putting the mechanical equipment. And then the large image on the bottom left corner, we've modeled in the size of that mechanical unit so that we could illustrate to you what you'll see. So you will see a new piece of rooftop equipment. You can see it from the street, but it's not very prominent. We had a meeting with the State Historic Preservation Office because you are a historic property. So we wanted to make sure that they supported our project. They felt like this approach was appropriate. Our mechanical unit is in the back of the building. It's not on any of the prominent elevations. It can't be seen from the front street. It can't be seen from the main historic prominent architectural entrance of the building. They felt that it was very appropriate on the back of the building, that is the right place to put it. So they've written us a letter of support for the project. And we wanted to make sure that you kind of understood what you would see. We can paint the unit. I think we can paint the unit to match the brick color so that we'll minimize the visual impact of that piece of equipment. Okay? Next. Don, you're up. You get bullets this time, but you can wing it too. That's all right.
That's artwork, correct?
It's beautiful.
The electrical service is rated 1,000 amps. Your new service will be 2,000 amps, but there's a huge distinction. The 1,000 amps is at 208 volt. The new service will be at 480 volts. So you're essentially getting 4 times the increase in your electrical service capacity. That's going to cover the HVAC that they're putting in today, and it's also building in capacity to meet the energy needs of air conditioning throughout the building in the future. So we're trying to get that capacity in now so that you're not redoing the service again with another capital upgrade. Increased service, I've covered that. The new XL energy service utility metering and exterior main disconnect switchgear is what you see in the picture there. Right now, that was put in, I think, 15, 20 years ago, maybe. And that was put there to create some safety disconnects ahead of the gear you have in the basement. That would go away. It would be replaced with a larger cabinet. The panel boards down in the basement, we have those in the project, I think as an alternate still, Cindy, or are those base? They're part of the base bid now, so that the panels, the main distribution panels in the basement in the boiler room will be replaced. So your entire electrical service and distribution infrastructure will be upgraded to accommodate all of these future loads and any changes you make to the building going in the future. Existing electrical distribution and branch circuit panels, those are not covered right now. Those are the small little breaker panels like you have in your home that are scattered around the building, feeding the actual lighting, the receptacles, and those things that you use. Those are still old gear, but it's a safer situation with those being old and having your new switchgear in the basement that is new. If you do have a malfunction at one of those, we're confident that the gear that will be put in the basement will clear any of those faults and help protect personnel and the building. We talked about the fire alarm control system a little bit earlier. With the new gas-fired equipment, the code requires that we put CO detection throughout the spaces that are fed with gas-fired equipment. That's to prevent monoxide poisoning and those kind of things. It detects the CO in the space and sends an alert. You can evacuate people, get them out of there, get things repaired, and get people back in. But because we would be adding devices to the fire alarm system, there's a potential requirement that the fire alarm system be upgraded. And because the fire alarm system's being upgraded, there's a potential that we have to go through and bring it totally up to code. I indicated that it was kind of a zoned system now. It would be a fully dressable system. Right now, your enunciation is horns and strobes, so it's just a tone, kind of an obnoxious tone. The new code requires that we put in voice evacuation, which means you would now get an obnoxious tone. Followed by the tone would be some voice messages saying, you know, we've got a fire, evacuate the building, those kind of things. But we're evaluating whether we have to do all of that or if we can get away with just doing parts and pieces of that as a part of this current capital project in the base bid. CO detection, we may end up going back with just standalone devices that go in a room. You might have some of those in your house. Some of them just plug into an outlet in the wall. But we would be putting in something that is actually wired to the building electrical system in the spaces there. Lighting upgrades, we talked about that. Be a huge energy reduction in the building if we were able to go to LED, but right now the LED lighting is not covered in this project. If there are areas where we're removing lighting, we will go back in with LED lighting rather than trying to put back up old technology. So if ceilings have to come down for ductwork or anything like that, we would end up going back in and at least upgrading that space with the LED. I don't know, any questions on electrical? I would say we would cut the lighting energy consumption probably about 75%, meaning the new lighting would be about 25% of what the lighting use is right now. I don't know how much the lights are on during the day or any of those kind of things. We'd have to do a complete model to really identify dollar figures that would go along with that. But if all the lighting were on and we put in all LED, it would be about 25% of what the amount of energy you're using today. For like security or? Occupancy sensors. Yes, that would be a part of the code. If we're upgrading lighting in any space, we've got to go back in with what is now termed vacancy sensors, which means you walk in, you hit the switch like you normally do, lights come on, but when you leave the space, the lights go off automatically.
Yeah, just to clarify, we've identified lighting as a great opportunity to save energy, but it's not in the current project, right?
Yeah, lighting,
just so we're
unfortunately,
clear.
Lighting is probably somewhere in the range of about $10 to $12 per square foot for those upgrades. It's not a cheap upgrade, but you'd probably end up with a 10 or 15 year payback in energy and stuff. I saw another hand go up. Oh,
Sure.
I just want to make sure I understand what is not part of this whole project. So, for example, the pastor's offices, the Murphy Room, Babs Chapel, the coffee bar, that's not part of this upgrade to the HVAC, correct?
That is correct. We're putting the infrastructure in now, so the electrical service would support the addition of those elements on kind of a room-by-room basis.
Would you repeat the question? question. I just, we
Okay.
have 10 persons online,
Gotcha.
and they probably couldn't hear Chris, so if you could repeat that.
Yeah, so
And I'll have the mic independently for the next.
perfect. The question was, in our diagram, we showed rooms that were getting mechanical work. What about all the other spaces? The Babs Chapel, pastors' offices. There's other spaces that currently are not adequately served with mechanical, but we are not able to tackle all those elements at this point. And as I said, we are putting infrastructure in so that we could support ongoing effort on a room-by-room basis to add mechanical to those spaces. Except for PJ's office.
Right, so PJ's office is the only one that we are addressing. I didn't cover it, and I apologize, but that is a small part of what we're doing. She will have heating and cooling so that she doesn't have a freezing cold office in the winter, which I know is critical. But that is the only place that is getting touched outside of the first floor Children's Center and the sanctuary itself.
And
Will remain on the old, I'm sorry. So my question is, the spaces that are not being updated remain on the old system, which will theoretically still function only for those spaces?
That is the intent. Now, I would also like to point out, we talked about the steam piping that's running in the crawl space. That also will continue to run underneath that first floor children's area. So even though the children's classrooms can be pulled off of the steam, the radiators can be disconnected, there is still steam piping below those rooms that's serving second floor. And so the intent here is to try to provide a phased approach. We can do a couple of rooms. Steam system is still going to have to be operational for the whole second floor, all the way from the Children's Center around over the pastoral offices, as well as the pastoral offices, the Babs Chapel. All of that remains on the steam with our current project.
any other questions? Yes? I think the mic is coming.
Given that we have an older building, when you start these renovations, I'm wondering if you have anticipated running into stuff like asbestos and that sort of thing. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you would do in that instance?
Yes, we do have some slides that talk about our budget and our approach, and it does certainly look at asbestos and other things that we feel like we can anticipate, as well as strategies for anticipating some of those things that are unknowns at this time. So I'd like to table that maybe for a moment, if I could.
About how long will these new things you're putting in last? How many years?
So from the mechanical standpoint, the unit that's going up to serve the sanctuary has a typical lifespan of 20, 25 years if it's maintained well. What's serving the classrooms is a little bit shorter life, usually 15 years, maybe 20 if you can stretch it. What we're providing, or we're working to provide, is a low-cost solution that addresses some of those critical spaces today. Ideally, if we had an unlimited budget, we would renovate the entire building and you would get much longer life systems. But to live within the budget that we have and to focus on the needs that there are, we're looking in 15, 20 for the Children's Center and then maybe 2025 for the main sanctuary. They can run longer than that. That's just anticipated lifetime. Again, with good maintenance, we've seen those run longer.
Okay, let's move to the next slide. We've got a little bit of architectural work as well. Architectural work includes the elevation on the image that you're seeing right there is the north side of the 1924 building. The stucco is failing throughout the facility. This is an area where we know that it's getting through the wall and infiltrating the building, getting on the inside, causing damage. So we are recommending replacement of stucco on this wall as a beginning and as an opportunity to address the leaks that you're currently experiencing, including new roof flashing. This would be a good test for what full stucco replacement as you go around the building might look like in the future. So this is where it would start. Other work that we're doing includes there's duct work to supply air to the classrooms in the Children's Center. The History Colorado group that we met with did recommend that we conceal that ductwork with soffits. So we're looking at potentially adding soffits to conceal that ductwork in the classrooms and in the corridor. So we would be building that. And then we're also including playground fencing that I mentioned earlier. There's a fence right now that encloses that entire playground area where your pumpkins are out, and we're just looking to scoot that over to create a flow of traffic from the building out to the public way. Did I miss anything in there? Oh, the other architectural work would be the steel frame to support the mechanical unit on the rooftop. So not a lot of architectural work on this project. We're really supporting the mechanical effort. Next. So we do, to get to the question of energy usage and what we might expect at the end of this renovation, we tapped into RAN. They are a group that did an energy audit for the church. And we gave them our design information, and they ran their energy model with the two scenarios that we're looking at for mechanical units. So the two scenarios.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, we're looking at a gas-fired piece of equipment, which would include air conditioning as our option 1, and then option 2, we take that air conditioner and also utilize a heat pump. So we get partial electrification, gas heat for those critical cold days, but electric heating when it's favorable outside. And so the real key there is trying to reduce, especially with option 2, not only utility costs and keep those in mind, but try to reduce your carbon footprint and provide a pathway for some electrification.
Yeah, Nick. So on this slide, I think what we're really seeing is that there is two pathways, and we're gonna include both scenarios in our design so that when we finally go out to general contractors and bid the project, we get costs for both the gas-fired unit system, but also the heat pump system. And what we're seeing here, so there's the two options, and then we also ran the energy use in the building based on your current system. This is the energy model run. It's not necessarily telling you exactly what you're spending today. It is a tool that we can use to compare options and alternatives. So we ran the system today, we ran the gas-fired unit, and we ran the heat pump unit. The top, I need something to point. There we go. Hopefully you can see this. So this is the energy use modeled in the building today, which is 4 million kBTU, which gives you an energy use intensity of 62. That's kBTUs per square foot. That's a method for equalizing energy uses to compare between buildings.
I'll point out that a higher EUI means you're using more energy. So lower numbers are better when we're looking at those.
So we ran option number 1 is the gas-fired scenario. The total kBTU for the gas-fired unit is about 3 million, which is a 29% reduction from your current system. We also looked at the energy impact as a comparison. This would result in a savings of about $6,800 is what the model tells us. So it's predicting that you'll save energy over your current system based on the gas-fired scenario. Also keep in mind that we now have ventilation where you're currently not ventilating right now, and all that ventilation air has to be heated and conditioned. So you're getting better air quality and also saving energy. So the next option that we ran, option 2, is the electric option. It has a total KBTU of 1.6 million, which is considerably less than all the other options that we've seen, but it's using electric energy and not gas. And the cost of electricity in your heating and cooling cost more than gas. So it's a negative savings or an additional $23,000 in utilities a year. So to go all electric, to be as green as you can be, to use the least amount of total energy actually costs you more in dollars. And we wanted to make sure that that was illustrated, because that is a choice that at some point we're going to face. Like, which way do we want to go? When you compare the EUIs, option 1 is 44, and option 2 is 23. That, you know, it may be a little different than this in reality, but this is the energy model that the our partner, was it CSU? CU, okay. CU ran for us. So it's a good comparison, right? It's not going to tell us what we're going to see exactly for final energy use, but it lets us compare different alternatives. Seeing that in graphic form, I think this is helpful to understand the concept. Baseline is blue. This is our electric usage. This is our current gas usage. Option 1, that's how much electricity that would use. It's still using gas, but less gas than your current system. And option 3 uses a lot of electricity, and then we would hardly use any gas in that scenario. And then when we look at that from a total energy standpoint, total energy is combining gas and electric together, looking at it in terms of kBTUs. Total energy use now is the blue. This is option 1, the gas-fired unit. This is option 2. Looks great. We're using less total energy. It's just costing us more. And that's the takeaway from the energy model. I assume that was not me. There we go. Oops. We're both moving slides. I'll let you do it. If you could go back one. There we go. So the current system, we also compared life cycle costs based on the energy model that was run for us by CU. Current system, there's no initial cost because you own the system right now. The annual utility usage through the model is $41,000. As I understand, your actual utility bills are more than this. I think it's something in the range of 60. But the model ran 41. Again, this is for comparison. There's no savings because that's your base system. So if you run that for 30 years, it costs you $632,000 for your current system. Option 1, initial cost was $824,000. Annual utilities predicted to be 34. Saves on utilities of about $6,800. The life cycle cost is $1.3 million. Option 2, a little bit more expensive. This is the heat pump, cost a little bit more. The utilities cost more, resulting in a negative savings or an additional 23 over what you're spending now for a life cycle cost of $1.8 million. Now what's not shown in this, which I put boldly on the right, is this $632,000 for your existing system. We didn't want to guess at what your maintenance costs are, but every year there's much money spent to maintain that current system. Yes?
The last few years, we've spent about $100,000 in repairs.
So
Over the last 2.5 to 3 years, we've spent about $100,000 in repairs.
we don't expect that to go down. We can't know what's going to happen. It's probably going to continue to go up. So you're going to continue to spend money to keep the existing system operational, and you have risk because it could fail at any time. It could cause damage when the pipes do fail and leak.
Cindy, does that include the major steam pipe repair from, That does not include the steam pipe repair. Okay.
How much was the steam pipe repair? Do we know offhand?
I don't know what the steam cost repair was, but it was significant.
Yeah, so that $70,000 is just routine maintenance, not a catastrophic event.
Right, that $100,000.
Or, I'm sorry, $100,000.
Yeah, is routine maintenance, just keeping the old equipment together.
It's probably double that. So, yeah. The point is, you're currently putting a lot of money into that mechanical system, and you will continue to do so, and that doesn't really show up on here. So the lowest cost, if you're talking about dollars, is the gas-fired unit, the new gas-fired unit. But it has it doesn't have the benefit of being all electric, right? We understand that. So takeaways from, I think, the energy study that we looked at, base design, which is the gas-fired unit, still saves you about 30% over your current system. You could get a lot more total energy savings with the heat pump. For comparison, Energized Denver is going to require an EUI of 42 by 2032. Now, we believe that you can satisfy the requirements of Energized Denver using either system. You're certainly going to go a lot further towards their goal of being all electrified with the heat pump unit. But we have investigated the program. If you can apply for equity priority status as a nonprofit with limited resources, and they will work with you. What they really want to do is they want to see institutions and organizations that are making an effort, that are reducing energy use and communicating and working with their program. If you went the route of the gas-fired unit, our model showed that your EUI was in the middle 40s. So probably not all the way to the Energized Denver target, but close. And as you continue to do mechanical projects in more rooms, that energy is going to come down. We believe they would see that as a positive sign, and you wouldn't necessarily have any trouble complying with Energized Denver in the future, is our feeling.
So along with that, go ahead, Tony.
So with Energized Denver, if we are not compliant, are we fined?
There are financial penalties. We believe that for nonprofit institutions that work with that organization, that they wouldn't assess fines, is our feeling, right? They want partners that work towards reducing energy use. They're not trying to go out and penalize anyone. But for private industry, private companies, if they don't comply with Energized Denver, there are financial penalties.
So what I'd like to point out with Energized Denver, we've been talking mechanical systems because that's our biggest scope with our current project. Energized Denver is looking at total building use. It's not just mechanical. The lighting upgrades that Don was talking about going to LED would be part of that. Any envelope upgrades, window replacements, anything that can be done to reduce the energy use of the building will help and reduce that EUI goal and get you to that target. So we're focusing on mechanical for our current project because that's the need of the church, but Energized Denver is a whole building energy model, and so there's pathways after this project, not necessarily with mechanical or maybe in conjunction with mechanical, that can get you to that Energized Denver target.
So there are also rebates from Xcel Energy. The rebates are primarily focused around the heat pump solutions. That could offset some of that cost. I don't have a sense for the scale and magnitude, but
They're not significant. I want to say when I looked for the new unit for the sanctuary, it was maybe in the $5,000 to $10,000 range as like a single time rebate on purchase of the equipment. So there is some incentive there. it won't be enough to bridge the gap between a heat pump unit and a non-heat pump unit from a first cost scenario. But there is some help out there.
Anything else to add on the ventilation impact of our new project?
So we talked about the Children's Center and ventilation there. I don't think we talked much about the sanctuary. The air handlers that are down there were originally set up for ventilation. I don't believe any of that is functioning today. And so if there's long services, it might start to get a little stuffy in here. Our new equipment would address all of that. I mentioned what we call demand control ventilation. So reduction of ventilation only to what's needed in the space. And we do that usually by measuring CO2 levels. So the more people there are, the more you're breathing out, the more CO2 there is. And then the more outside air comes in. If there's nobody in the space or there's just a few people, we really reduce that down so we're only using what we need. But the real key there is improving indoor air quality because we don't have it right now in the sanctuary or in the Children's Center.
Tim, could you just speak to the life cycle or the lifespan? I know there was a question about the lifespan of the new equipment that was going in. What about the lifespan of our existing equipment? Where are we?
You are well past what it should have lasted. And I would say it is limping along barely from what I have been able to see. So Cindy shared cost of repair for the chiller. I don't remember what it was offhand, but there's some cost associated just to keep the cooling system for the sanctuary, as rough as it is right now, even partially functional for the next year. Same goes for the heating system for the sanctuary and for the heating system in the Children's Center. It is on its last legs in all respects, and so trying to get ahead of that as much as we can to provide a source of heat, especially so we don't freeze anything, and help with comfort in the building. So typical systems last, I think, 30, 40 years. The sanctuary systems are 70 years old. Children's Center, the piping is over 100 years old now. That steam boiler is, I think, relatively new because that was an emergency replacement maybe 10, 12 years ago, something like that. So there's a lot of need to address things before they get worse.
Thank you.
So we did a cost estimate for where we're at with our current approach. I don't want to go through each individual line item, but you can see from the data on the screen, the lion's share of the cost is associated with mechanical equipment at about $675,000. All the mechanical equipment is the most expensive, followed by all the electrical service and panel replacement is about $237,000. All the other line items are really supporting that mechanical and electrical work. Down at the bottom, we do have a total $1.9 million for our base bid scope. And then we've also looked at some alternates. These are things that we would include in our design through the completion of our process and price them as options, right? Alternates are things that you can choose to elect or not. So the alternates are the playground fence realignment, about $15,000, heat pump RTU option. So this is the upcharge if we go from gas-fired units to the heat pump unit. And it's an upcharge of $82,000 in first costs. We looked at 3 additional classrooms in the Children's Center. In the base bid, we have 2 classrooms that we're doing. And then we've priced separately the 3 classrooms on the south side of the hallway. That would be about $227,000. And then we priced the fire alarm system with the voice notifications. That system is quite a bit more expensive than the system that you have right now because it requires all new devices. It requires speakers. It's a much more sophisticated system, and they're quite expensive. That was taking a rough cost per square foot based on industry information that we got was about $339,000 for a full fire alarm system replacement. The high cost of that system is why we're looking at can we do a partial replacement, not replace it with an entirely new system. So the total here, this includes contingencies and soft costs in these numbers. We've budgeted for everything that's associated with doing the project. That includes our design fees are included in that total, as well as asbestos abatement, the design process and the investigation that would go to identify areas in the building where there is asbestos. We've got all the testing, permit fees that are required to do a whole project. All of that is in that number, as well as a contingency. We've got about 10% contingency budgeted right now. So all of that is included in our estimate, with a total of about 2.6. And I think that gives us a little wiggle room built into that estimate. Yes, question?
We have recently had an emphasis on security. And I'm wondering, when you talked about the fire alarm system, is it possible to expand the scope of this to maybe include some elements of security in this project?
Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, unfortunately, new codes will not allow you to combine security with fire alarm, so the security upgrades would have to be a totally separate system. I mean, there are several different areas of security. You've got secure entry access, which is kind of, your card access systems or other ways to prevent people entering the building through the normal openings, the doorways and stuff. We have what we call intrusion detection, which is meant really for when the building is unoccupied. You've got motion sensors and stuff throughout the building that detect somebody inside the building when there's not supposed to be anybody in there. And then you've got video surveillance. And so those are the three different layers of security that could be added on. But right now the project doesn't include anything in relation to security.
What would something like that cost?
I want to say, kind of off the top of my head and based on experience, if this were a brand new building being constructed today, same square footage, you'd probably be in similar range of the fire alarm system, maybe a little bit more. Working with an existing structure, those costs just go up. But with security, you can do, you don't have to do security throughout. You can secure a few entries, take the external operating handles off of some of your doors and make them just exit only type of doors, and then put security on one or two primary doors. Reduce the cost that way. Intrusion detection, that's something school districts, they put intrusion detection in the high priority areas. The admin spaces, music rooms where they're storing a bunch of instruments, wood shops where they got a bunch of equipment, those kind of things. You could take the same approach there. Video surveillance, again, you can do the same thing. Are there a few areas that are high priority, like the main entries? Do you want to watch more of the exterior? Do you want to see what's going on inside the building? A typical camera, one camera, if you've already got video surveillance in place where you've got a digital recorder and those kind of things, each camera is probably about $4,000. And that's for a decent camera. That's not going to be one that the FBI can come in and identify, a mole on a guy's cheek, but you could at least see a figure and know that it's a male and those kind of things. Intrusion detectors probably in a range of about $600 each by the time you wire them into a system and stuff.
And we've got, I think at the charge conference, we've got so many needs for this church. They could add up roughly to $15 million. So we've got 2 million, 2.5, and so we had to prioritize. And the priority was keeping the building open, keeping the building from freezing, and making sure we're not raining in the building. So It's a great idea. Would love to be able to do it. Would love to be able to do so many other projects for the church, but we have to start somewhere.
And from a priority standpoint, security is something that can be added on as you move forward if you get some more funds later in time. The infrastructure, like the electrical service, we could probably limp along and feed this one rooftop unit from the existing equipment you have in the basement. It's not going to work very well. We may run into issues trying to connect that to the building, but with the electrical service, it's something you really need to do today to support things going on in the future, and we want to build it to 100% of what you're going to need, 15, 20 years from now. But security is something you can add on a couple cameras, and a digital recorder, or add in some intrusion detection in spaces, or even some secure entry points, and do that kind of in a piecemeal approach over time.
Yeah, so very scalable solutions for intrusion. So at 2.6 million, this is our design estimate. The way this process will work is we will complete design and we will put this out to competitive bid to multiple contractors. So this is our best guess of what it would cost. We need to confirm that when we actually bid the project, but we'll have the advantage of getting price competition among multiple people that would be proposing to do the work. So we'll make sure that we get you the best value. Maintaining alternates in the project is part of how we manage that, because we're not sure exactly how the bids are going to come in. So we give ourselves some room to work with, right? So that we maintain your budget, give you the most you can possibly get for your money, because we know that that's very important when you're in your situation fundraising for critical projects, right? Schedule. Oh, question behind me.
There's a question from online saying, is the fence repair one of the priorities approved at the last church conference?
I don't know that we specifically talked about that, but you could mention egress, the fence. Mm-hmm. How do you speak to the exiting portion?
Well, I did describe the exiting importance of doing the fence work. And the question was whether or not that was one of the approved items. It was listed as a scope item at the charge conference. I do know that. And it is something we plan to do if we can afford to do it. And it was a relatively small cost compared to all these big mechanical numbers Tim's showing our way. So this is our overall schedule. I do have this broken up, but I wanted to show you all the parts. We've broken it up into, when we design projects, we break it into multiple phases of design. We're in schematic design right now. Schematic design is kind of what it sounds like. It's very conceptual. We kind of know our general approach. We understand the kinds of systems and the kind of equipment that we're going to have, but all the details are not worked out yet. We're moving into our next phase of design called design development, which is our green part up there. We're going to finish that up in early November. We would finish design development, then we'll move to construction documents. Construction documents is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to be the final plans the contractor's going to build from. It's what we're going to submit for a permit to the Denver Building Department to get the work approved. And once we have the construction documents complete, we submit for a permit. We'll also bid the project to multiple general contractors. That would be complete by the end of the year. We're looking to have construction documents done in December, put that out to bid, and select a contractor. Have a contractor on board in the February timeframe. So I did make the next slide a little bit bigger. So yeah, the greens design development, we've broken it down into multiple tasks. Finished up early November. We will also begin abatement design. Cindy's working with an abatement and environmental company. that now that we have schematic design finished, they're going to take our design, they're going to look at the areas of the building that we're impacting, they're going to test for asbestos, they're going to come up with a plan that we can bid to an asbestos contractor to remove any hazardous material that may be in our way. That process will begin soon as well. Got construction documents there, finishing up before Christmas, and then we move into bidding and permitting, as I talked about, having a contractor on board in February. We see construction starting after abatement is complete. We see abatement beginning in April and running through May. Hopefully there won't be too much. We're still figuring out exactly how much abatement we'll need. And then what we're anticipating is construction from July to October. When you're doing a major mechanical replacement project, we try to time that in the summertime, right? You don't need the heat, so it's kind of critical that we get in and we get that work done when you're not in heating mode so that you don't have risk of freezing in portions of the building while that system's down. So our idea would be about this time next year, in 1 year, all this work would be complete and in place and functioning as we start to get into the cooler heating season. Question on schedule? Okay. Yes, and I just wanted, this is my last slide, and then I'll turn it back over to your folks. But we did want to remind everyone that this is the first phase in an ongoing effort to replace the mechanical systems in all the portions of your building. We will have in our design drawings diagrams like this that identify, so the green are spaces that we're tackling right now. And then the yellow are the next highest priority spaces that we feel should be targeted for mechanical replacement. And we're trying to plan now for how we would do that. So you've got a solid plan moving forward as funding allows. And then the red spaces are the lowest priority elements, includes the fellowship hall underneath us. It's just not as critical. But we're going to lay out a plan, a long-term vision for how you would go through all the elements, all the areas of the building, and arrive at the end with a complete building mechanical replacement project. So we are thinking about that. Any questions as we turn it over to? Yes, question.
Do you anticipate that we would be able to use the building during the construction time, or
Yep.
periodically be out of the building?
So one of the benefits of doing a mechanical project during the summer is that you won't be relying on that system to be able to occupy. Now, there may be points in time when it's not comfortable in the building because your systems may be down. So we're going to have to work closely with the contractor to minimize the impact. I think that you'll be able to utilize the building through the majority of the project with minimal impact. But there's going to be points in time when the impact of this space could be possible.
I was just going to speak real quickly to the electrical part of that, because we are doing a service upgrade. There will be a point in time, we're going to work with the contractor to build the new service, get it energized, leaving the old service energized until that new service is complete. There's going to be a time of a switchover. The switchover will probably be, 7-10 days, something like that, where there just will not be any power in the building. So you will have to contend with that at some point.
There may be some Sundays next summer when you need fans and that kind of thing to use the space. But I think through most of it, you'll have access.
I was going to ask a more general question. Hot air rises. Is there going to be a way to get some of the hot air that's up there in the winter down here where we are? Or is it just going to stay up there?
It's a good question.
So we can look at what are called destratification fans, ceiling fans. Destratification is a fancier name for it, but There's multiple options for that. That is not something we have explored at this moment, just because we're trying to address the mechanical systems as we have and what needs to backfeed what those serve. That is an option. I don't know if it's one that we could include it as an alternate. I don't know if it's one that we could potentially include in this project. There definitely are some energy savings with that. A lot of times you see those really, really big fans. You know, if you go to big box stores or anything like that, you'll see those really, really giant ceiling fans. And they do a really good job of destratifying the space, putting that hot air down. There's also some cooling benefit. You usually can raise your temperature set point for cooling a couple of degrees, which helps with energy savings. Those are definitely measures that can be done. And I will say that they are also not tied to our current project, as in we can do them after the fact, and that's a great one for kind of a one-off small thing that's outside of our project as well.
That's a great question. That's something that we ought to just think about.
What will be the impact to the Children's Center?
During construction?
During construction.
Yeah, the question is, what will be the impact to the Children's Center during construction? There may be a mechanical answer to that, but before I say that, does the Children's Center run full-time all summer? It does.
We use all of the classrooms during the summertime, all 5 classrooms on the bottom level. We also utilize the gym. We also utilize the 1 classroom upstairs. We are closed for 1 week in July, the week of the 4th of July.
So we could definitely work with days that you're closed, but you know, there's going to be enough work going on in that area that they're going to have to cycle through rooms, and there's going to be periods of time when classrooms would not be available.
So one of the benefits of what we're doing for the mechanical system in the Children's Center is it is completely disconnected from the existing STEAM system. So we don't have to take the STEAM system down to put the new mechanical system in. It's separate. The impact within those classrooms is mainly just the duct routing within the room. The actual furnace and piece of equipment that's upstairs doesn't impact the classrooms. Those steam radiators can stay as they are. So I would say it's as minimal as it can be. There might be an opportunity to take that week from July and do a lot of heavy work during that week, you know, nights and weekends, working with the contractors to do off-hour work, as well as maybe we can, you know, shift classrooms. If there's some open rooms that can shift for one of those classrooms for a couple of days, let the contractor run their ductwork, and then you guys can come back in and maybe move some things around to accommodate them.
Okay, so I just want to clarify, when you say switch classrooms or shift classrooms, because we're at our fullest during the summer, so the capacity for the classrooms per our licensure and our age group, I'm just trying to understand what that looks like.
Are there any rooms, and this is kind of a general question, and how the whole church is used, but are there any rooms second floor that aren't currently used for the Children's Center that could maybe be repurposed for a week or two? And that I'm not sure who's to ask that question to.
Okay, yeah, I completely understand that. I just want to be realistic about where we are in the Children's Center and kind of what we do. And then also just in respects to the question on will it impact and are there rooms available? And a child care center is a lot different than a public school. So I was just trying to get a basis on what that looked like and what expectations are so it can be a realistic move forward in a realistic time to do renovations.
I think what would be really critical and helpful is if you have any ideas when we get a contractor on board on, if you can take a classroom down and where things can maybe move to or what needs you have to accommodate those kind of shifts. Having that kind of information in the back of your mind ahead of those conversations will help significantly.
Tim, that's exactly what I was thinking and was going to say to Ashley, and we can get, the three of us can at least get together, start walking the building now to get an idea of what you all think licensing would approve. You have a better sense of that than I do, but this is a large building, and my hope is that we can find spaces just to start putting on a list of possibilities.
I have a question. Will you be occupying outside space? Would we be remiss in trying to do anything with our current landscaping because you will be using space that is now serving as landscaped areas, or will there be basically no change to the outside? Is it all going to be inside?
So there should not be any impact that I'm thinking of right now to the landscaped areas around the exterior of the building. All our equipment is going on the roofs. So the roof on the north side of the sanctuary, the roof on the north side of the 1924 building. The fence work is a little bit of impact in the playground area, but I think that is really the only site impact that we're looking at. So it should not impact landscaped areas.
Thank you.
So Don asked about contractor staging, and I do think we're a little early to know, but the contractor is going to need space on site to work, and that's something else that we'll need to continue to work on and to think about how we would accommodate that. They will need space to have some storage, place to park, place for their people to have materials, and those will need to be accommodated, on site to some degree. Okay, any other questions?
Typically speaking, and I know that's a loaded word in the field of construction, but typically, what could we expect in terms of timeline of notice if we need to shift? Like shift from having worship in the sanctuary or shift the children around in different classrooms? Do we usually get, a week notice, 48 hours?
Oh, I think the contractor would really want to plan the whole project out at the beginning.
Yes.
We would hire a good contractor, and they're going to develop a detailed schedule. They're going to know when they're doing all the work involved in the entire project, and they're going to be able to give you much more than a week notice. It would be months, right?
Yes.
Like once they get on board, we're going to start planning it in March, and they're really going to be able to tell you what time of year some of that key work that would impact primary spaces, like the sanctuary, like Children's Center. So there's going to be plenty of time to plan, to adjust, to plan, other accommodations. Yep.
And we're making educated guesses right now based on a very schematic design. So we'll know more as we get further along in design. And we won't be able, we'll have questions. I worry about lead times on equipment. We don't know that right now. Lead times on electrical gear. Are we going to be able to get Excel in here on time? So I just want to warn everybody that it's not like going out and buying a car. It's very, it can be very complicated. And we really have to work together as a team. And a lot of patience and a lot of good communication. Okay? And we can totally do that.
We've got a question in the back. We did not prepare handouts of the slides. We can. We don't have any problem making that available to anybody who's interested.
Nobody else wants one, I would take a handout.
The church has our slides also, so we're fine if they're distributed. Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody. We'll hang out for the conclusion, but we appreciate it.
All right, any last questions? Are we feeling good? Oh, you're checking online, good. So Cindy, would you help me clarify the exact language that we are voting on tonight? Voting to approve the designs that were presented? We are approving the design direction.
And continue with the development of the documents and the design. Through continuation through construction documents.
Direction to continue through
the construction document phase.
Construction document phase.
Yes, because there'll be another meeting to present that construction document phase to a group that then will allow us to go into the bidding phase.
So what you're approving tonight allows the team to go forward through the construction document phase, and then there's another anticipated meeting in January to approve the next steps.
Yes.
To get the bid and the contractor.
Yes.
And all of those things. So are you clear on what you're approving today? Awesome. Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay. Online folks, when you vote, if you would raise a real hand or a digital hand, then Pastor Jackson will count online votes. Does that work? Okay. And I'll count in person. So if you would approve the design direction to continue through the construction document phase, please raise your hand and keep it up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay. Oh, 3. Hey. Okay. Hands down. Anyone opposed? And any abstentions? All right, unanimous approval. Thank you very much. That is a lot of work to go into tonight. So thanks to the team, thanks to everyone. You will begin hearing more as they continue the work, and then we'll have another charge conference in January. Pastor Jackson, anything you want to say before we close?
I just want to say one more time to Brian, Patrick, Don, and Tim, thank you. Thank you. And Cindy Sauls, we will forever be grateful to your clarion call. And to all of Park Hill, here and online, thank you for giving us your time tonight. And to our DS, Reverend Jessica Rooks.
I just come do the fun stuff. This is great.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, well, let us go out with excitement about what is next. Go in God's grace. Amen.